Good evening, friends, and welcome to another edition of Crime Time with DutyRon and Ed Wallace. We are retired New York City police detectives and 9/11 World Trade Center first responders. If you like all things true crime related from the police detective's perspective, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell so you'll get all things DutyRon and this guy over here, Ed Wallace, when we go live or upload another video. Tonight is part 2. We promised you that we would get back with you after the Saturday night breaking news, former President Donald Trump, and how the Secret Service and law enforcement failed him, because we're learning so much new information between Saturday and today. And Charlie, who was a guest with us last time, Ed, he said, let's wait 72 hours. We waited a little bit past 72 hours. We still don't have all the answers, but we do have a lot more information about what happened that day. But before we get into it, let's say thank you to the Patreon supporters, the channel members, and all the moderators and replay viewers who help us out. They help us keep this place classy, and I thank you guys all. Tonight, we're not going to be getting into much of the politics, but we're going to be talking about the crime scene, and we're going to talk about the failures that happened on the state, local, and federal level. Ed, a lot of information has come out, and I want to get your take on it. I know you got a whole lot to say, and so does Charlie.
Yeah, a lot of information has come out from the news, from news sources, and a lot of it is under conditions of anonymity by certain law enforcement sources. Again, we're going to go with the sources, but the powers that be, the director of the Secret Service, and the other people, the president himself, has not come out and spoke on what's going on here. Okay, if it's just crazy how many hours we are away from the actual event, and there are statements being made by federal law enforcement. We were just having this conversation offline before we came on here with Charlie, that there's no way they can be making these statements because they haven't done the work yet.
Yeah. And that's the crazy part, is that, lots of folks are asking questions and there's no answers. The director of the Secret Service, Kimberly Chittle, appointed in 2021 by the Biden administration, and there's so many people that are calling for her resignation and for her to be fired. And this is coming from lawmakers. This is coming from senators. This is coming from both sides of the aisle. I don't know why my mic keeps muting. But before we get into it, I want to play a little piece, but we got to introduce Charlie, our Secret Service, retired Secret Service agent. Charlie is got 28 years experience. He was on with us Saturday night with the breaking news. Tonight happens to be his birthday, but we're going to hold the birthday celebration to the end of the broadcast. But Charlie, thank you for coming back. And thank you for being a great contributor here. It's just frustrating. It's just frustrating to hear about all the failures that we're now hearing about. You said about 72 hours we should wait. We waited a little bit longer, but I just wanted to get your thoughts on all the new developing things that we're hearing as a Secret Service retired agent.
The thing of it is, I take a lot of this with a grain of salt. We have to just sift through. There's a tremendous amount of information. There's going to be a tremendous amount of video. Okay, right? In today's world, everybody's got a cell phone. It's got video. They're already asking. The FBI is doing the investigation. It was the Secret Service was the interim federal presence on scene, held the crime scene, and then both directors, Secret Service and FBI, discuss turnover and how it was going to be accomplished. But we've got a lot to go through. I mean, stories. Let's think back to our time, right? Let's think back to when you were actively involved in a case, and obviously you're not talking about the case, and you hear all the things that, if one of your cases make it to the news, like, where are they coming up with this stuff? Like, how are they even saying this? It's not even close to what the reality of it is. And you can't disclose that, obviously, for investigative purposes. Additionally, we're going to have to just have patience. The most important thing, you've got to learn to be patient in all of this, because in the end, you have to get the truth out. And to get the truth out, you must do an extensive investigation, right? We've got to go through this with a fine tooth comb. We have got to go over every single piece of video we can get. We got to piece this together and forensically, as Ed will go through, I'm sure, is how they have to recreate the crime scene. I mean, we have enough video now that you can do it very well. You know, this isn't 40 years ago where you're getting a scratchy, piece of video. This is, even your cell phones now have very high quality cameras. And all of the news agencies that cover this event do have very high-end, high-level quality devices to record and transmit the video. So those are all going to be asked for, and if not given, they're going to be subpoenaed by the FBI. They will get them, and they will have to do the full reconstruction. But this will take time. We live in I want it now, I want it today, I want an answer immediately society. But law enforcement doesn't operate that way. We never do.
Yeah. Well said. I mean, Ed, there's a treasure trove of information that can be compiled after the fact, but what we're hearing, and again, these things are not confirmed. These are all these, as you refer to them, those sources. Just a lot of things that when you look at this, when you look at the big picture, like the main building where this shooter was located, why was that not secured? And we don't have the answers to that question, but we definitely know from doing this. And Charlie, you've done it so many times. I've done it. Ed, we've all done this in the city of New York. I know that, Butler, Pennsylvania is a different place. But the bottom line is you still have to secure the site. And that's the interior, the exterior, the outside, all of that stuff. Ed, I know you got a lot to say.
Yeah, when I was on a job and we had these major events like Unger or whatever the case may be, I was in the Archangel package, so I was on standby offsite with the quick reaction force. That was our role. So a little different, but I was involved in a lot of the planning just before I retired for the 2004 Republican National Convention at Madison Square Garden. Right. So, I worked with the Secret Service. I worked with the Diplomatic Security Services and all these other agencies that were involved in the preparations for that. But I tell you what, though, there is so much information being gathered here. I am not used to a crime scene where I'm going to have this amount of data. The video in and of itself, the video from all these people, these videos are timestamped. Okay, yeah. So I mean, the timeline and the events in time that is coming out, it's coming to light, is very disturbing. Okay, I mean, when this person was saw, at what time, and who did what, and who notified who. All of this is leaking out little by little, like it's drips and drabs. But as it comes out, the more it comes out, the more disturbing it gets. And if in fact it's true, but like I'm used to shooting reconstructions without having any video footage of the shooting, because that's normally the way it is. But right. With this one, there's so much video evidence from the civilians that were attending, and now we're finding out there were photographic evidence from law enforcement of the suspect. And it gives us a great time frame for when these things started to occur, when he became suspicious to law enforcement, and then who notified who. I can't wait for this whole thing to shake out. I see in the chat everybody's talking about the late the director of the Secret Service said the buck stops with me. Yeah, well, when you're the leader. Yeah, that's true. When you're the leader, you get the praise when things go good, and you also get the heat when things go bad.
Absolutely.
Okay?
That AGR building is where the shooter, Crooks, was perched atop the roof. And we heard coming out of her own mouth, Kimberly Cheadle said that we did not put anybody up there because the roof was slanted and it was too dangerous. And many, many news reporters made reference back to the White House and how you see Secret Service agents perched on the sloping part of the roof. I'm going to play this little piece, and then we'll get back to the chat, and we'll get back to the conversation. But this building, the AGR building, in that shooter's site to the president, to former President Donald Trump, that is the main focus on the screw up. And there's a water tower that's right behind it that has a ladder that could have been climbed up, and could have had people up there, and that was not done either. So let's take a listen to this, and I'll be right back with you guys.
First, let's go to senior correspondent Jonathan Seri, who is in Butler, Pennsylvania. Jonathan, we are learning so much now.
Yeah, we certainly are. From spectators, everyday spectators at that rally, almost all of them with a cell phone, not realizing they would be recording history. It's helping people piece together those chaotic moments that ensued during and immediately after the shooting. Police attempting to move in the direction of the shooter are seen in one video. They're blocked by a perimeter security fence. They end up using a police cruiser to ram the fence to create an opening. The Army veteran who shot this video tells Fox News Digital he was surprised the rally security plan did not have a patrolled access point in this section of fence to handle this type of emergency. Just seconds after the gunman opened fire, a Secret Service counter sniper fired back and struck him. A federal law enforcement source tells Fox News local officers were inside that same building the shooter was on top of, but local media cite other sources who claim the cops were actually in a nearby building instead. WPXI TV has obtained a photo from the rooftop where the shooter was killed, showing his cell phone and a transmitter resembling a TV remote. Investigators believe the device to be some sort of detonator and say they found rudimentary explosive devices in the gunman's car parked nearby. Investigators say in the hours before the shooting, 20-year-old Thomas Matthew Crooks purchased a ladder at Home Depot and went to a gun store to buy ammunition. The owner of that gun shop says FBI agents came by on Sunday for an interview, and the business is fully cooperating with their investigation. This afternoon, members of the House and Senate will receive separate virtual briefings from both the Secret Service and FBI, and the Department of Homeland Security's Office of Inspector General has opened an investigation into the Secret Service's security plan for Saturday's rally. In a letter to the OIG, Senator Chuck Grassley writes, "This was a monumental security failure. Former President Trump came within a centimeter of death because a gunman was able to get within hundreds of feet and in direct line of fire from where he spoke to his supporters." Harris, back to you.
All right, Jonathan, thank you.
Hey, everyone. I'm Emily.
All right, so that told a lot, but it didn't tell the whole story. Before you start, Ed, I just want to say that the local police officer who was hoisted up onto that building and startled the gunman, I truly believe, and this is my opinion and my opinion only, that had he not startled the shooter, and listen, this is an argument to be had. Had that officer not got up there and startled that shooter, he may have had all of this time to take his time and take the right shot. I believe that because that happened and the gunshots happened right after that, he had to rush his shots, and maybe it helped to save former President Donald Trump. I don't know. I'll go to you guys for your thoughts on that.
Yeah, that's definitely a possibility. He didn't expect the uniformed police officer and to pop up behind him like that. And but there was also talk that the counter snipers had him in their sights well before he fired shots, well before a uniformed police officer attempted to get on the roof. And so we got to nail down this timeline to see, who saw what, who reported what, and why didn't they take action before this? Because apparently, like I heard a report today, because I was doing a lot of research on this. I heard a report today, reported on the news that the sniper team actually took a photograph of him and then circulated that. And then they also saw him on the roof on his cell phone.
Yeah.
But yet, as Charlie, I'll let Charlie say it, because it was, we were just discussing it before we came on the show about what the FBI said about, the phone. Charlie?
Yeah, I mean, when I saw this, come out in the news that on Monday they said they hadn't cracked his phone, meaning gotten into the phone and analyzed the data, and that he acted alone. And all I can think to myself is, you're way out over your skis. You're like, you don't make statements like this. This is not something you comment on, especially so early into an investigation. I mean, how do you know? What evidence do you have that he's not involved with someone else or multiple people? I mean, if I was whoever said that, I think maybe their supervisor should have taken them and said, "You'll never speak to the press again. Thank you for your service, and you are no longer employed."
Yeah. Okay.
It's an amazing statement. It's an amazing statement that means nothing, but yet it sends the wrong message in terms of, keeping the public aware and on the right track. You never make statements to retract them, right? The answer is, I don't know, but I'll find out.
Right.
Or the investigation hasn't shown that yet. We do not know. It may in the future.
Exactly. How do you go from saying we haven't gotten into his phone yet, but he wasn't associated with any known terrorist group, or he was acting alone? How do you make those statements if you haven't gotten into the phone?
Yeah,
I can't.
Charlie, I had a couple of questions that came into DutyRon.com, and thank you to the folks who go on to DutyRon.com all the time and check our cases and leave us questions and comments. Charlie, these are just a couple that I wrote out. There was probably about 15 or 20 different questions, but the main one was, what went wrong with the Secret Service and law enforcement, state, local? What happened with the site plan? Why wasn't the building that the shooter was on top of cleared or covered in that initial site survey plan? And also, it's alleged, as Ed just alluded to, that Crooks was stopped with a rangefinder. Why wasn't he detained when he had that rangefinder? I know these are questions that you may or may not be able to answer, but I think the first one with what went wrong here and who's responsible ultimately for this debacle that happened, this terrible situation that could have resulted in former President Donald Trump being murdered. And we already had Corey Compatore, a heroic retired firefighter, 50 years young, shot in the head in front of his wife and his children. His wife and his daughter witnessed him get shot in the head at this rally. May he continue to rest in peace.
Yeah, well, look, the thing of it is, overall responsibility for putting the security plan together is the Secret Service's. It's their responsibility. In that respect, you also have to be able to trust the so-called partner law enforcement agencies that you work with, that if they're delegated to do certain things, they will do them. Right? We tell them, if you're going to man this post, that means man this post. You don't abandon it. You don't leave it. There are so many things they could have done. And looking at that rooftop, is there a slope to it? Yes, but it's not an A-frame. Okay, it's not like an A-frame ski chalet. You've got. If he was able to lay up there and get a shot off, how come you didn't have people on there in a direct line of sight? They could have put a 10 by 10 canopy up there and weighted it down with 5-gallon buckets filled with whatever material you wanted to put in it to give them shade if they really needed shade. Just like you'd see at a tailgate at a baseball game or a football game. If it was that bad and hot, they could have done 30-minute pushes, meaning 30-minute change the manpower out. One guy up, one guy comes down, one guy goes back up, one guy comes back down. Lots of sunscreen and a boonie hat. You're good. I'm not trying to place the blame on anyone in particular, but if there was an agency outside the Secret Service that was a partner and they were supposed to cover that point of view, that field of fire, and they didn't, and they thought they could hold it from another building or inside, well, they're wrong. If I'm tasked as just a simple post stander, my job is to ensure that no one comes in or out of a certain doorway. Well, that doesn't mean I'm standing down the hallway 50 yards away in the hopes that I can see someone and then stop them before they open a door or break into a door and get in there. I'm on point. I'm on the mark. And if I'm tired or I need a push or relief, that's when I would call on the radio for the site agent or my other, if it's a deputy sheriff, on the TAC team, that, hey, man, it's really hot up here. I need some water. Can I take a break? Can someone come and relieve me? And, one of the first rules is you don't leave a post until properly relieved.
Face to face.
Properly relieved means you brief the person that's relieving you. Hey, man, everything's cool. Or, hey, listen, there's a guy. He's over here. He's behind this tree. He's been by this car a few times. I'm not really happy with the situation that's developing over there. Keep an eye on him, and maybe we can get someone to run over there in a couple of minutes and check on him and see what he's really up to. But all these other things that we're hearing, like he had gotten a ladder and he had gone and bought the ammunition that day. And, he was able to access a roof area, and his parents called him in missing. One of the things you got to remember is where he lived and where the event took place was a good ways apart, about an hour to an hour and 15 minutes drive. And if his parents called into police, the dispatch or 911 center where he lived in Bethel probably doesn't communicate directly. They'd have to go out of their normal path of communications to speak with someone up in Butler, PA, to notify them, hey, we're looking for this kid, and supposedly he took the father's gun, and he's been among the missing since this morning. These are all things that, they'll figure it out. They'll get it done. But you have to understand it, he didn't live in the same area that the incident happened. So when his parents called the police, and there'll be a transcript and there'll be an audio of that as well. I don't know any 911 centers that aren't recorded anymore. That, it may not have been transmitted to the people in Butler in the most expeditious manner. Additionally, they may not have known where he went.
Right.
They may not, the parents may have just said, look, he's missing, he's got the gun. They may not known he has gone to a rally to commit heinous acts.
Right. As we know, Charlie, too, like everything is on video camera nowadays. Like I looked at the
they're going to be able to track him if he took the highways. They're going to have him on Pennsylvania dot cams.
Right.
They'll track the car. They got the plate. They know the car. They showed it. It's sitting in the parking lot. They blanked the plate out, but it was a darker gray 4-door foreign-made car with blacked out windows.
Yeah, we talk about this all the time. Ed, go ahead.
I teach this stuff with other dignitary protection experts, Secret Service, retired Secret Service, and other law enforcement experts that do this for a living. And can I share a screen?
Yeah, sure, Ed. Go ahead.
All right.
So I know that the camera in the front of their house, I was looking at the family's home where he lives, his parents' home. They have a Ring video doorbell. It's not exactly a Ring video doorbell, but it's one of those video doorbells. I'm not sure what it is, but they have that there. So we'll get to see him leaving that day. He told his father that he was going out to the range to shoot the AR-15. When he didn't return home at 5 o'clock, I'm sure that they got nervous, or maybe they even called the range and said, hey, has my son been here? It's probably a local range. No, he never came in. Now the suspicion gets raised. And this is just all speculation, but it could be something potentially of what happened. What do you got up on the screen, Mr. Wallace?
Do you see it?
I do.
So this is a course we teach law enforcement, and we also teach civilian unarmed and armed security guards in event planning. And these are your concentric rings that we use to show, who's going to be handling what in what areas and what the roles are and so forth. So you see deter, detect, defend, defeat. And the primary asset is what needs to be protected. And so we have these concentric rings of protection, and we have different things there. And you can see what's in each of the different rings and who's doing what and what their responsibilities are and so forth. So and this should be old news to Charlie, right? This is old hat.
Oh yeah.
Well, I mean, it's we practice the three rings, inner, middle, and outer, and that technically, you can push those rings. They expand and contract. But the building itself from which he took the shots was considered the outer ring, and normally that's a majority of non-Secret Service personnel. Okay, I'm not trying to place blame with anyone in particular. I'm just saying that's how the
You're
rings are
100% correct. We know this.
I mean, they will have someone there, right? There will be a limited amount of Secret Service personnel on the outer ring just for communication and coordination. But the majority of the outer ring is going to be probably 90-10, 90%.
Look, I can tell you this, guys. I'm going to tell the whole listening audience this. I spent a whole full tour, almost 8.5, 9 hours, in a stairwell at the Waldorf Astoria when Obama came there to give a speech in the Grand Ballroom. And you know who I was told? But I was working in the dignitary protection unit. And I was told by the Secret Service lead of that site, gave those directions: stand in this stairwell and do not let anybody come up or down. And there was cops on every stairwell in every floor of the Waldorf Astoria. But we had to sit there for 8.5 hours. Yes, we got relief face to face. If we needed to use the restroom, we needed to get a drink, needed to have something to drink, eat or whatever. So we got the breaks. But what I'm saying is what Charlie's saying is 100% correct. We would work hand in hand with Secret Service on these dignitary protection details.
Yeah. And, we did it when I was a rookie. I can't tell you how many times, like, you'll have a presidential motorcade or it doesn't just have to be the president, but someone high profile dignitary that's doing a motorcade, maybe like from UNGER or from the UN to an airport, right? We'd have cops on every overpass of the highway, guarding the overpass as the motorcade would proceed along. And then once the motorcade proceeded, then we would collapse that area of protection of the overpass because the motorcade had passed by. And in fact, I had to investigate. I had to investigate an attack during UNGER on the Iranian delegation by former Iranian dissidents, Iranians that are now living here in the United States, ex-Iranian Pats, I guess you would call them. Right. And they attacked the Iranian motorcade on the FDR Drive from a park that was adjacent to the park with paintball guns. Thank God it was just paintball guns. And then they lit up the motorcade with the paintball guns. And then they had radios, and they radioed their other team that was waiting at the hotel that the Iranian dignitaries were staying at. And when the Iranian delegation got to that hotel, because they deviated from their plan, and after the attack on the highway, they went right back to their hotel. Right. And the other Iranian dissidents that were there waiting for the delegation, and as soon as they popped out of the car, they lit them up with paintball rounds. It was a total failure on the part of the people providing dignitary protection for the Iranian delegation. But when it was a simple attack, it wasn't anything crazy.
These are all just examples of what could happen on these type of details. But the bottom line is as Charlie was saying, Ed, Secret Service relies on local and state police departments, and NYPD happened to be, the largest municipal police department in the United States. So resources were plentiful. In cases like this, they look at the state police. I think they said they assigned 40 state troopers to this detail, and gave them sniper assets and so forth. And then I have written down, there's, I think, 4 different agencies from surrounding areas that were assigned to this thing. So there were personnel there, and that's the screwy part. Let's look at this little piece, and we'll get right back to you guys, because it's alleged that an hour before former President Donald Trump takes the stage to start his rally, that they had identified this assassin. They identified him, and nothing was done. So that's the crazy part, and that's what's making everybody say, how the F did this happen? So let's take and listen to this.
We're learning more about the movements of Thomas Crooks before Saturday's shooting at the Trump rally in Butler. New video obtained exclusively by Pittsburgh's Action News 4 appears to show Crooks lurking in the area an hour before he opened fire. A seemingly simple video capturing Saturday's large crowd in Butler, also seemingly capturing a much more sinister moment.
I wanted to pan the crowd because it was a massive crowd. So I was just taking in the moment. So this was before the shooting, obviously.
That was him looking at that building and sizing it up here. He's looking at the actual building that he perched himself on to take shots at President Trump.
So this was before the shooting, obviously had no idea how that day would end.
Let's walk you through this video you'll see only on 4. The man who captured it all, not wanting to show his face on camera. He says he was trying to capture the crowd and take it all in. But if you take a closer look, you'll notice someone in the background. The timestamp is 5:06, and the video appears to show 20-year-old Thomas Crooks lurking near a building just past the secure parameters of the event itself. As the video pans to the crowd, you'll notice law enforcement vehicles stationed in the area as well. As the camera moves back towards the building, Crooks appears to be seen again. Blink and you may miss it, but it likely shows Crooks was in the area for more than an hour before the shots were fired.
When I saw the video last night, when I was going back through my video clips and saw him, I was chilled to the point where I couldn't fall asleep right away, and I didn't sleep well. There's something really went wrong with this.
Law enforcement sources say Crooks was able to access the roof by climbing over an air conditioning unit adjacent to the building. Pittsburgh's Action News 4 has learned from multiple sources that Thomas Crooks was spotted at the rally, photographed as suspicious, and officers were actively looking for him when he made his way onto the roof and fired at former President Donald Trump. And again, federal officials tell us their investigation is ongoing.
So, interesting details there, Charlie. Our good friend, retired NYPD detective Dennis Desmond says, is it common to have surveillance drones or any type of aerial assets covering this type of event? Thank you, Dennis, for that question. Charlie, I'll let you handle that because you would know better than most.
Well, they can have them. Was it likely that they were in use that day? No. You got to realize this is a former detail. Their assets are much lower than what you would get for a president's detail. So you're not going to have all of the things in place that you normally would on a president's detail. Additionally, he was still listed as a former. He was not listed as yet the Republican nominee. That would give him what's called a CNOS, Candidate Nominee Operations Section package, and an upgrade on manpower and coverage and other items that are used in a protective envelope. So it wasn't the full package that he could have had. My understanding is assets had been asked for. Where those requests went, I do not know. Apparently, they were either denied or just not fulfilled.
Now,
go ahead.
Unfortunate. You've got a guy, he's very high profile. He's probably one of the most high profile protectees as president and one of the most high profile protectees as a former that the agency has ever had. Additionally, I am going to kind of delve into it just a tad. I don't think that you can demonize anyone for as long as they demonized him and then not have an unhinged individual eventually react. I mean, when you're comparing him to Hitler.
Right.
And to Mussolini.
Yeah, we went over that on the first live stream that we did on
this is
Saturday night.
unhinged. It's so irresponsible.
But Charlie, what about this month before this event, the Iranian plot to kill former President Trump? They said it was weeks before the 7/13 event that he had. They said the Secret Service director, Kimberly Cheadle, said that they added assets to the detail after that threat. Would it be outrageous for me to say that the assets that were there on that site, whoever did that initial, and we're going to show on the 10th. This event happened on Saturday the 13th. On the 10th of July, that was that Wednesday, 6 to 8 Secret Service agents were filmed by a news crew doing the site survey and walking this location. Is it fair to say that somebody dropped the ball as it pertains to that building? I mean, I don't care where it was or, how far out it was. That building had a direct line of sight to the front stage.
Yeah, should have been covered. Should have been covered. There should have been personnel on the roof. There is no way that rooftop is insurmountable to put people on. I see nothing in any of the video of it. I see nothing in any of the still pictures of it. And if it was good enough for the shooter, then why wasn't it good enough for law enforcement? If he could get up there and he could lay in a sort of a prone position and fire off several rounds and connect, some with an intended target, some with unintended targets. We don't know his mindset. We may never know his mindset. Obviously, we believe that his main target was former President Trump. That doesn't mean that he wasn't trying to wreak as much havoc as you possibly can in the shortest amount of time before someone got to him. I think the guy pretty much resigned himself to that was my last day on earth.
Yeah.
I don't think he really cared about life in general. I don't see him as being one who would, try and harden himself up to protect himself from counterfire. He laid right out in the open.
Look at this comment.
Wearing any body armor.
Look at this comment from the chat. Cherry Sour, thank you for the comment. After he died, he didn't slide off that roof. He was shot and he stayed on that roof.
The roof's pitch was nothing.
Right.
Yeah.
Like I said, it wasn't an A-frame like a ski chalet.
Yeah.
Okay,
let's take a look at the Secret Service agents. On July 10th, on Wednesday, July 10th, a news crew was dispatched. They were just covering the event. There was no ill intent by the news. The news was this was an exciting, huge event of 15,000 people to come onto that location, the Butler Farm Showgrounds. So here is and most people won't see, haven't seen this or even will look at this, but this is what happened on Wednesday, leading up to Saturday's attempted assassination of President Donald Trump.
117 days to go now until the November election. Pennsylvania, of course, one of the handful of battleground states attracting lots of attention from the candidates. And this weekend, we're going to see just how important Pennsylvania is when former President Trump campaigns in Butler County, and First Lady Dr. Jill Biden will be here campaigning for her husband.
Now, also, I'm going to let this play, but Charlie or Ed, either one of you guys can chime in on this, or both. Assets. Do you believe that assets were taken away from former President Donald Trump to assist and aid First Lady Dr. Jill Biden as she campaigned for her husband in the Pennsylvania area, in Pennsylvania? Charlie?
I'm not sure if they, this is a question of logistics. And the other thing, the other thing that's important you should remember is the cost should never figure into this. If they're worried about paying, for certain items, whether it's overtime for agents to work the extra hours to be there, or for sea-land containers to be piled up to block a field of vision. This is the money. Money is not an option.
Ed, your thoughts?
To save a life. I mean, really, come on, folks. You think about how much money this government spends in foolish manners. You mean to tell me that the safety of a former president, to include the people who come to see him, isn't important? I mean, you have a dead former fire chief. Okay, ask his family if it was worth enough.
Yeah, and look at the venues. They're totally different venues. Trump is outdoors. right? And where was Dr. Jill? Where was she? Okay, and she has her own detail. Okay, and look at the crowd size and so forth, and they're totally different. There's apples and oranges when it comes to protection. It's much easier to control an indoor event than an outdoor event. Okay.
Yeah, 100%.
Additionally, the first lady's detail is what they consider a satellite detail,
right,
of the president's detail. So with that in mind,
Jeff brings up
assets are a lot more. I wouldn't say available, but more likely to be distributed.
Mm-hmm.
Let's let the rest of this play.
Trump.
Again, don't forget, this is July 10th on Wednesday, the Wednesday leading up to Saturday. July 10th, news coverage of this event.
Will hold his first Western PA rally of 2024 this Saturday. It's going to be at the Butler County Farm Show grounds.
KDK's Barry Pintar spent the day out there to find out about the challenges that location could present.
Yeah, me in a tie on this tractor in Butler County is a good contrast to what will likely be going on this weekend when former President Donald Trump, all of his Secret Service and staff will be through these barn doors with likely thousands of people. Most would agree Donald Trump rallies, regardless of your political affiliation, attract a lot of people. They are big productions, stages, lights, and potentially thousands of people. Just days away at this point, we saw what appears to be an advance team for the rally, and judging from their license plates, possibly Secret Service members scoping this likely location. We say likely because even the exact spot of the stage isn't made public. This large open field is a pretty good guess, judging from the generators, and another clue, Robert Bricker knows he's hauling in lights for the rally and parking them here. You pulled in some lights. What are they for?
For the rally up here.
Yeah, and so they told you they're starting to set up now? Is that what's going down?
Yeah, setting up, I guess, starting today and going into the rest of the week, all that.
Oh, look at all of them back there.
The showgrounds office staff here told us they believe there will be 15,000 tickets sold for the rally. Here's a big potential problem. All those people will have to drive through this. A whole lot of construction on Route 68 that leads into the showgrounds. Some people are saying they're concerned that there's going to be thousands of people. Quite likely there will be a lot of people battling this construction to get here. In 2016 and 2020, Trump won Butler County both times with 65% of the vote. With Pennsylvania remaining a key battleground state, it will be important that people not only come, but won't be frustrated on their way in and turn away. Hopefully, these advanced people here days early will be able to solve some of these likely logistic.
This female agent here is, I believe, the agent that we saw in front of President Trump's motorcade as they were speeding them out of the venue. Correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Charlie and Ed.
Oh, that's her. That's her.
So she was there on Wednesday and did that site survey with multiple other. There's a male, another female, blonde.
If she's there, then that means, that she's part of the advance team.
Right. And when you look at the earlier shot, you could see her here as well, in the green. And then there's a blonde female. You never really get to see her face. And this bald Secret Service agent as well. I recall seeing him up on the stage with President Trump as well. So this advance work was done, as far as we can tell here, and we don't know. They might have been there on Monday as well, but I don't know because I was not a Secret Service agent. But I don't know how many times they go to the site, if it's a multiple day thing or if it's just a one-day thing, whatever the case may be. The news was there to document it, and I thought that was important to show it. One of the chatters before, I don't remember who it was, I think his name was Jeff, said that this shooter bought a ladder from Home Depot, confirmed, bought a ladder from Home Depot. Ed and I were talking earlier today. There's a possibility that the kid could have brought all of his supplies, maybe not the gun, or maybe even the gun as well, and put it in the bushes or put it in the trees and covered it. And had that ladder somewhere to the side, because we now know he was walking around that venue questioned. There was nobody that questioned him. He was not stopped while walking around the buildings. We just saw that video clip. Ed, anything?
Yeah, I mean, all of that has to get looked at, because there's always there's all of this rumors about the ladder, but it doesn't appear that he used the ladder to get up there. That doesn't mean that he didn't have it in close proximity between the car and the venue. But he did apparently, witnessed by all the people that were there, climbed up the air conditioned ductwork to get to the top of the roof.
Yeah, terrible. Charlie, anything?
No, it's very possible. Look, it's like anything. When you go to work, do you use every tool in your tool bag? No, but you have it. So with having the ladder, maybe he felt the need that if he couldn't scale up the side of the building using some of the stuff that's on there, whether it's air conditioners or, maybe they have a ladder that only goes halfway up, we don't know the full layout, or trying to access. Maybe he even tried accessing the building that was apparently sold a couple of months ago, and maybe it was unoccupied. Maybe it was in the state of transition. So he obviously thought of different scenarios and things he might need, but we're not going to get inside his mind because he's gone.
Absolutely. Angela, thank you for being here. Melly, new moderator, great friend of the channel, gifted a membership. Thank you, Evie323, for gifting out 5 memberships. And thank you to everybody that's in the chat. This was a great piece because this goes over to Secret Service and security failures from the state and local law enforcement. I may take a hit for this one because this is a channel that usually does this, but I really don't care. I think it's important for us to see this. So I'm going to play this. It's a little bit lengthy, so I may speed it up.
What happened?
It's the Secret Service's biggest crisis in decades. How did a 20-year-old gunman climb a rooftop with a rifle and fire shots at former President Donald Trump from less than 150 yards away?
Shooters down.
This is a colossal failure for the Secret Service.
The Secret Service isn't just responsible for the safety and security of the protectee. They're also there for the safety and the security of the people that are showing up to these events. So this is tragic all around.
Here's what we know about the security gaps that led to the assassination attempt on Trump.
Yeah, look, there he is.
In a video taken by a bystander shortly before the shooting, the gunman Thomas Matthew Crooks could be seen crawling on a roof as people were heard pointing him out.
Dangerous people, criminals. We have criminals.
And a witness told the BBC,
the police are down there running around on the ground. We're like, hey, man, there's a guy on the roof with a rifle.
But those alerts, if heard by any officers, didn't seem to make it up the chain back to the command center.
That's a massive communication failure. When I was overseeing sites, we would have Secret Service agents right next to police with police radios. If there's something that's going on, boom.
Charlie, you said that. You said that just moments ago, that you would have a Secret Service agent close by one of the locals to monitor anything like this, right? And here he is, Tim Miller, talking about this on this news piece.
Oh yeah, I mean that's part of it. There is no central frequency on the radio that every agency was on.
Yeah,
that's another breakdown in the communications. You need standard comms between everyone, and I know that like all of our stuff, meaning the Secret Service, my former agency, it's all encrypted. So you've got to make a call there. Do you hand out radios to other members of other agencies? There's a lot that goes into it because is your radio VHF, UHF, 800 MHz trunking? They're not compatible. So having another agency's radio either on your person or with another person from that agency is very beneficial. There was a lot of breakdown in communication. There was a lot of delay in communication. I don't know why you see all of these suspicious things, backing out the time clock, 10 minutes out, 26 minutes out, an hour out, whatever it may be.
Right.
And yet nothing was done. Just how about just a preliminary FI field interview? Hey, buddy, how you doing? Everything okay? What are you doing over here? Can I get your name? You need help with something? You're looking for someone, looking for something? Just simple. These are basics that any law enforcement officer learns. Coming through an academy and a couple of days out on the street, you're going to know this.
I just
right?
think, Charlie, the biggest question that everyone has is if this guy was identified an hour before Trump even took the stage or an hour before the shooting, then why did they allow him to go out there on the stage if there was a potential threat?
This is the great mystery that shall be unraveled at some point. But the point being, if no one's communicating, I could have all the greatest information in the world to stop this. But if I share it with no one, or I can't share it due to communication errors or communication breakdown, it does me no good to have the information because I can't pass it.
Right.
So with that in mind, it's useless. It's become useless. It's become stale.
Right.
And now this guy is out there and does what he did. You're done. This is a failure on a lot of levels. It really is. And one of them you'll probably see that'll come out that I'll say is probably one of the primary reasons that this bad stuff happened is lack of communication. There's going to be something come around where vital information that should have been passed in a timely fashion, meaning the most expeditious fashion, was not passed.
Everybody knows instantly. Quite frankly, if the detail had known there was an armed person climbing up on a roof, they would have evacuated the president right away, no questions asked.
Beyond that, the Secret Service said
And there's exactly what you were just saying, Charlie, is that breakdown of communication. So this retired agent is saying if, in fact, Secret Service detail knew that there was an armed person on that roof, president would have been probably tackled and dragged off that stage. We've seen it happen in the past where Secret Service comes up and says, "Hey, you got to get off. You got to go. Let's go."
Look at these air conditioning units and the ductwork, right? And this is a drone footage most likely, right? And over here too. And yep, you can see how that is easily obtained access to roof there. But yeah, if they had drone footage, that could have been going back to the command post and so forth, and they could have got eyes on this guy as soon as he encountered the roof. Then you pull the president.
Yeah, exactly.
relied on local law enforcement to secure the building that crooks climbed. Typically, Secret Service and local police operate together in concentric circles. Closest to the principal, in this case Trump, are teams of highly trained Secret Service agents. In the middle perimeter, there's usually a mix of Secret Service and local law enforcement who might cover portions of the motorcade and any pre-event screening. And in the outer perimeter, security largely falls on local law enforcement. In Butler, the building the shooter climbed was technically outside of the rally venue, and the Secret Service didn't sweep it.
It fell through the cracks, which still falls to the Secret Service because it means nobody checked to make sure the plan was in fact implemented correctly.
According to the Butler County Sheriff, right before the shooting, a local officer climbed onto the building and saw Crooks, but dropped to the ground when Crooks aimed his rifle at him. In an interview with ABC News, the Secret Service Director Kimberly Cheadle said local officials were inside the building when Crooks scaled it, but said,
"The buck stops with me. I am the director of the Secret Service."
There are also questions about why counter-sniper teams located behind Trump didn't take out the shooter earlier, even though they appeared to be facing in his direction.
Once the shooting started, they had rounds on target almost instantly. So that tells me that that shooter had come to their attention, and they were in the decision loop.
Very similar pitch roof.
Investigations into what went wrong will...
Oh, yeah. Exactly the same pitched roof as the other pitched roof that the gunman was on. Some experts were saying, and I was watching a whole bunch of stuff saying that those, the sniper 1 and 2, and there's allegedly a third sniper team at the back end of this venue. The sniper 1 and 2 had to reposition themselves because the target was lower than where they were viewing. And you could see it a little bit here in this clip where this guy right here lowers this barrel. It's more upward, and he has to make that adjustment. As you can see here, it's up, and he adjusts it down. This is probably not a good example, but if you look at some of this footage, he makes an adjustment. He looks up, and then he cocks the back end of this up and aims that barrel down.
The investigations into what went wrong will also focus heavily on what happened before the event even took place. The Butler rally was announced by the Trump campaign 10 days ahead of time, which experts say gave the Secret Service plenty of time to do site advance planning and potentially even eliminate the line of sight from the building where the gunman was perched to Trump's stage.
In this situation, you actually had an event site that was being built. So they're there to find out what the dimensions are going to be, what the stage is going to look like, where it's going to be located. And then based on that information, they are then looking at potential threats, including areas of high ground, and how to best mitigate those threats with the overall security plan.
Former Secret Service agents say the buildings near Trump's stage in Butler would be a glaring risk and not something that could have been missed by advance agents.
We lost a president in 19.
Charlie, do you agree with that statement as a retired Secret Service agent?
Oh, yeah. Look, you've got to take into consideration the whole lay of the land. You just don't secure right what's around him. You've got to consider the high ground. You've got to consider what buildings are there, what's in range. Yeah. I'm not understanding how on an advance you don't address these. And
the reason I ask you is because so many people are, questioning. We're hearing all these experts. This guy, I don't know if you know this person or you know of these folks that are on here.
Tim and Chuck, Chuck Marino. Yeah, all very, very well versed. But the point is, this is on the advance team. They go out and they're expected to do a certain job, and then the field office is going to review it, the supervisory chain, and there's going to have to be an accounting for this. They're also going to have to consider, did they, and I don't know whether they did or they didn't, did they assign that building to a partner law enforcement agency to hold and secure? And if they did, I'm not saying they did, but if they did, a lot of that will be on that agency which was charged with securing the building. If it was our responsibility, meaning the Secret Service's responsibility, then we better own up to it real quick. If it wasn't, and they delegated it to a partner law enforcement agency, that partner law enforcement agency better own up to it and real quick. I mean, you've got to have accountability. I'm sorry. This is not, I'm in the parking lot and, hey, I bumped your bumper and I scratched your paint. Can I give you $100 to fix it, or not go through the insurance to raise my rates? This is serious. Someone is dead. 2 is still in the hospital, and a former president who is most likely leaning towards becoming the next president has been shot. Yeah, he has been shot. People want to try and write it off. Oh, they kind of just clipped his ear. They winged him. I see people saying things like that patch he's wearing at the RNC is just for showing sympathy. Seriously, if that's your attitude and view on things, I don't even want to know you. I don't even want to talk.
In my opinion, the director's got to go. But AJW, how did he know nobody would be on top of the roof? He didn't. It looks, if you see in the video that we showed you earlier, he was doing his recon around that building.
Look, if we could predict things, we'd all be billionaires.
Exactly. Right.
That's
why I love these psychics. If they were true psychics, they'd hit the lotto every time. Okay.
Yeah.
Look, everybody, when something bad happens like this, everybody becomes the executive protection specialist, or if it's a shooting, everyone becomes the crime scene reconstruction specialist, or someone becomes the expert in whatever the topic is. We got to wait. We got to wait. We got to wait, and we got to get the facts, because once you start putting conjecture in there, you're poisoning the system.
Absolutely.
And you're not going to, you're muddying the waters. It's going to make the job a lot harder, because then we're going to start spiraling conspiracy theories. Come on, gentlemen. How many times have you heard, and probably went through the roof like I did, that 9/11 was an inside job?
Oh my God.
Anyone tells me that, I'm telling you now, don't be around me when you say that, because if you say that around me, woe unto you.
Yes, the 9/11 truthers. I bumped into them several times.
We got to, it was an inside job. The U.S. government did it.
I don't like it. Muddy Paws sending a $10 super chat, and he or she says, is it possible the subject observed the walkthrough by the Secret Service a few days before? She's referring, or he's referring to the
is it
video.
possible? Yes, that's at that point, that is not a restricted area.
Right.
And other than it being, I'm assuming it's some type of either private property or county property.
Right.
If they're not restricting access to it, right? The old saying, here's the one you'll always need to know. You see all these First Amendment auditors. Okay, we know who they are, right? They're annoying, but they're okay. They have a right to be there. One thing you need to remember: right to be, right to see. So if I have a right to stand right here on this sidewalk, anything going on around me, I can view, I can record, I can take pictures of. That's it. There's nothing you can do about it. And it is a First Amendment protected part of life. That's it. Right to be, right to see.
Let's take a look at this piece. This is from News Nation, and they're talking about
Americans both.
They're talking about the Secret Service, the Secret Service chief, the head of Secret Service, Kimberly Cheadle, and how she needs to resign. So let's take a listen, and I'll be
now
right back.
Chad Wolf, former acting Secretary of Homeland Security. You know a lot about this subject and protecting Americans, both foreign and domestic. I appreciate you being here. The investigation into what happened on Saturday in the assassination attempt, what does that look like specifically to uncover the answers that we need to prevent it from happening again?
Well, I think you've got a couple of different things going on. You've got the DHS Inspector General, who just announced that he's going to open up an investigation here. His office will open that investigation. You've heard President Biden and Secretary Mayorkas talk about an independent review. So they're going to have to square those two different investigations up. We don't need multiple investigations. You probably need one lead investigation to understand what went on. And then obviously you have more public congressional hearings probably taking place next week as well. So you've got a number of different fronts going on. But look, regardless of who it is, I think what they're going to take a look at is, did Secret Service follow the procedures that they have for protectees, in this case, former President Trump? And if they did, are those procedures, is that planning, is the resource allocation sufficient for the types of public profile and threat profile that the former president has? So a lot of those things will be looked at, the role of local law enforcement, state law enforcement, and how they partner with Secret Service to secure a venue like that rally. All these things will be taken a close look at.
The task is uncovering the answers and looking closely at how all of this happened, but couple that with calls for accountability. Does that accompany this investigation, looking at mistakes that were made, and what does accountability look like, Chad?
Well, I think it should. What you normally find those with these types of independent reviews, particularly from the IG and others, is they won't call for specific personnel recommendations. Congress certainly will, but it's really up to the president. It's up to the DHS secretary to say, were procedures simply not followed? Was it a case of incompetence? Was it a case of people just not doing their job? And if that is what went down, then who is accountable? I believe at this time, based on public reporting, that the accountability stops with the Secret Service director and what she knew and what she was able to authorize for the former president's security detail. So I think that's a big part. I think that's what Americans, they want to understand what went wrong. How could you allow something like this to happen? But then they also want to know who's accountable.
And can she withstand pressure to step down? And how does that impact morale within the Secret Service in such a tumultuous political time?
I think it's going to be very difficult for her to withstand that. I think at the end of the day, she will likely need to resign because, look, the buck stops with her. I think she was quoted as saying that recently. I'm not sure how she survives this. If your primary, particularly in the protection division of the service, is to protect your principal and someone shoots the president, you have failed in your mission. Regardless of how it happened, your job is to protect the president. And so I don't know how she withstands that type of scrutiny. And I think those calls are going to come certainly next week in public congressional hearings.
This investigation under the microscope, but at the same time, we've got to talk about the threat of copycats and other follow-up violence.
All right, so I wanted to show that, and then there's a little bit of drone footage I wanted to play here. This is just a quick thing. I don't think there's any talk on this. It's just drone footage of the site.
Challenged him.
Yeah. So he got up in between this area right here with I believe a ladder, and some people say he climbed the AC on the other side. But I have some footage where it shows a ladder, and we were supposed to have 2 guests who actually witnessed and filmed him up on the roof, and I'll play that for you guys. But this is, I mean, here, this is how direct of a shot he had, and the distance is just so small, that it's just ridiculous to have this building unprotected. And Ed and Charlie, I mean, you can let me know if I'm wrong, but if you had personnel outside on the perimeter standing security in this area where he got in, 1 or 2 cops here, 1 or 2, 3 cops here, just if this whole building was surrounded by men and women on the ground, he wouldn't have been able to get on there, or there would have been a gunfight between him and them. So I don't think that that's really arguable. If they had personnel down there, he would have been had.
Well, he would have been confronted when he was doing his recon.
Let's go to the chat, because it's unfair that everybody's been here all this time and sitting in the chat. Thank you so much for the super chats that came in. Angela, Melly, Evie, Michael Joseph Murray, always here. Thank you for the super sticker. Schmitty is always sending super chats and supporting us. We love you, Schmitty. I'm thinking no more outdoor venues for a while. Charlie, is President Trump going to be in an outdoor event anytime soon?
I think he's having one over the weekend coming up.
There's talk he's going back here.
Yeah, look, the once you allow something like this to dictate your behavior, they won.
That's right.
They win.
That's right. That's right.
Look at this. Happy birthday!
I think what has to happen, though, is there has to be a review of all facts, and it's going to take like we said, take time. Most importantly is there are certain packages that he's allotted via the manual, right? Secret Service has 3 different manuals: investigative, administrative, and protective. And I think right now in the protective manual, it's not time to follow the guidelines. It's time to go in excess of the guidelines, because apparently what you used in the guidelines was insufficient.
I'm getting really aggravated with the director because she's refusing to come speak to Congress, to the point now that they had to issue a subpoena.
Amazing. Okay. And it doesn't seem like Biden is really
she's probably her boss, her direct line of command, her direct chain of command is Mayorkas. And
Mayorkas is right.
I can guarantee you that somewhere along the lines he is blocking her.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether she wants to testify or not. Personally, I wouldn't want to testify, but if I'm called to testify, I have to, right? Okay, it's called life. That's what you accept with the job, right? We talk about inherent risk in any job. Firefighter, you could get trapped in a building and burned to death. Police officers get shot and killed. EMS workers could be out on a highway treating people in an accident, and more cars pile up and they get killed. Okay, it's called the inherent risk factor. You join the military; it's voluntary. You could be killed.
Well,
this is part of the inherent, thing of the job.
She's in the executive branch.
Yeah,
she's in the executive branch.
You have to answer questions.
That's right. The Congress has oversight authority.
Yeah.
Mel Stiller sends a super chat in, Charlie and Ed, and she says, "Why should she refuse to come before Congress?" And Mel's from Canada.
Well,
So.
I mean, I could see her not wanting to come until there's the full facts, right? Maybe, but she should come out and say that. Right. Not like clam up. Like, come out and say, look, we are willing to cooperate in any way.
Right.
But not until all the facts are in, because I don't want to make a misstatement, especially a misstatement under oath.
Right. Right.
Because if you perjure yourself, come on, guys, we know, right?
Yeah.
That's it. Your career's done.
There was
certain people perjured themselves.
Yeah. There was an interview done today. Thanks, Ed.
Yeah.
There was an
Look,
interview done today.
look, we all know in today's world there's accountability for some people, but not others, right?
That's right.
CNN grabbed the director of the Secret Service and interviewed her outside, I believe, Secret Service headquarters. I'm going to play that in a minute, but right now I want to play eyewitnesses to the shooting, Amber and Mike DeFriscia. They were going to come on with us, but he got caught up at work. He just sent me a message. He apologized. But I'm going to play this video because I was going to have them come on and talk about their own perspective, because they were at the rally, but they weren't in the main area. They were outside where this building was. And he took his phone out when everybody was saying, hey, there's a guy on the roof with a gun, and he took his phone out and started videoing it. Him and his wife were scared to death, and they were hiding behind a tree. They got covered behind a tree. So let's take a look at this coverage. This is an interview that they did today.
We are hearing from the man who took the now viral video of the suspected shooter, sharing his experience as the chaos unfolded on Saturday night. Fox 25's Keith Daniels takes us through his perspective.
Well, the man who captured images of that suspected gunman on the roof that day says he believes law enforcement could have done more to stop that deadly shooting. His thoughts as he describes to me what he saw that day.
There are images that won't soon be forgotten. Suspected killer, 20-year-old Thomas Crooks, on the roof of a building, taking aim.
When I seen him holding the gun like he was taking aim, I thought, oh my God, this guy's about to shoot into the crowd or something. So I turned my phone on.
Mike DeFriscia said he started recording on his cell phone.
This is his
Still
recording.
photo grabbed from that video.
Yeah, we had just got there a little bit late.
He and his wife Amber live in Crawford County, Pennsylvania. They were at the Trump rally in Butler Saturday. They arrived late, so they sat outside of the secured area near the building where Crooks waited.
We were there maybe 10 minutes waiting for Mr. Trump to come on. And then after he came on and started to speak, my wife shortly after he started nudged me and said, hey, what's going on behind us? And that's when we noticed some commotion.
Now, where's that? Oh my God! DeFriscia said he noticed Crooks climbing the roof, then noticed he had a gun. They tried alerting police, then took cover.
I kind of felt I could see the guy with my eyes. I knew where he was at. I got me and my wife behind a big tree, and I felt that we were safe.
Then you see the gun, you're like, oh my God, we have to hide. But there's nowhere to hide. There was a couple trees to hide behind. So you didn't know whether to hit the deck or run or just stand still. It's very chaotic in them split seconds.
I want to just tell you, I interviewed his wife. I talked to Amber on the phone, and she told me, Ed and Charlie, that there were police officers on the ground that they notified and said, hey, there's a guy up there on the building, that they notified him. And they basically said that the cops were just walking around. They didn't act on it. Like, like Ed, when we were on patrol and someone said, hey, there's a guy over there with a gun shooting, you go running to where the shooting is. They both just said that it was just like they were confused. They didn't know what to do. And that's their personal eyewitness account. And they've been interviewed, they said, by several law enforcement agencies. Just disturbing on many different levels. And there's just so much to this, because they weren't the only ones that witnessed this. I think there was a handful of people who took these videos, and we see them uploaded on TikTok, and we see them all over the place. I want to just get to the super chats really quick, and then we'll wrap it up. I promise. Charlie, it's your birthday. Happy 29th birthday. You only turned 29 once, Charlie.
29 again, baby. You gotta love it.
Thank you for taking out the time to be with us on your birthday. Phoebe
That's all right,
said-
my brothers. I love it. It's fine.
Phoebe, thank you for sending in that super chat. We all get it. Appreciate your support. Muddy Paws says, it's $5 super chat again, but does the Secret Service actually act out where they'll be located during an advanced team visit? So he would have seen nobody would be on that roof. He would have seen nobody was on that roof. They just do that when they do the walkthrough, Muddy Paws. It's only for them to get a lay of the land. Okay, this location needs people. This location needs people. And again, I didn't even get to the water tower aspect because there was a huge water tower behind that building. And I'm just going to go quickly to Google Earth. And thank you for reminding me, Muddy Paws. I want to go to Google Earth just for a second and show you guys the lay of the land from Google Earth. Hold on, where is it?
Ron, while you're pulling that up, the walkthrough. The other thing you have here is they were building that venue, right? That was not something, we don't know the date that they completed it. So that's going to change the landscape of the advance. They're going to have, to walk through several times once it's in place, because you had basically a vacant field it was called the Butler Farm. I can't remember the last part of it, but it's some type of a farm, like a farm expo center. And so once that whole stage is built, the tenting, the walkways, the bleachers, you can go there and look around, but you that's fine and well until they actually put everything in place that's supposed to be there. And that could be right up into the morning of or the evening before the event. In the morning of, they could be still laying down, lighting and moving equipment in. You saw one of them there. They had a harvester. Was that supposed to be part of the whole thing, or is that just something that's left laying around there all the time? There's a red harvester. Could that have been moved to help shield line of sight issues for former President Trump? I don't know. It's a very static environment until everything is dropped down, put in place. And the other thing is you've got we try, meaning the Secret Service tries to have everything in place and done. Well, if there's staff changes at the last minute because they didn't like the way he was going to walk out, or the camera angle wouldn't work for that time of day with the sunlight or something, those are things that they could try and change. But you want to have that no changes as close as you can possibly get to the event, right? We'd rather have it set in place long in advance rather than the night before or the day of. That's kind of something that is not unhinging for us, but it's not highly recommended. It makes things more difficult, because if you thought he was going to exit from stage right, but he exits from stage left, and it changes the configuration of the entire event, you may have to revamp your security perimeter.
Right.
Hey, Charlie.
Yes.
Let's. Can we put some kind of controversy here to bed? The director of the Secret Service was correct me if I'm wrong, please. She was a 27-year member of the Secret Service, and then she was on Vice President Biden's detail during the Obama administration, and then she left the Secret Service to go to Pepsi for a short time, and then was picked by Biden to be the director. Is that not accurate?
Yeah. She had been in Atlanta as well too, as a special agent in charge in the field office there. So she was well seasoned. She was known to the Biden family. Obviously, if you're in a detail, majority of protectees do know who you are when you're a permanent assigned to a protective detail. So
you think that was a favored assignment that she got that position?
Don't know. Look, there's we can make rumors about anything.
Okay, gotcha.
Was she favored? She may have been. Her name may have been put forward a little bit more because she was a known and not an unknown, right?
So let me show.
I would hope the judgment is made on the pedigree of the person, not the knowing of a name.
Gotcha. All right. So this is the overview, the Google Earth overview. This is where former President Donald Trump, his whole stage was set up here. The shooter was here. Our sniper team 1 and 2 was here on this building and this building. And I'm going to go in closer just for a minute. It's alleged that that sniper team 3 was here at this location and would have a direct line of access. And then the shot was, I think, 900 feet total, which is not off base for a sniper to take a shot from here. So team 3 allegedly was set up here, not on this building right here. And I have video footage of it from a reputable source. But hold on a second, I muted myself. Right behind this building right here, there's a huge water tower, and it has a ladder up that goes up over here. I have actually pictures of it from Amber and Mike, those eyewitnesses. So the shooter was right here. This water tower would give a direct line of sight, not just to this building where the shooter was, but right here where the president's stage was set up, right here. Huge high water tower would have had a clear and unobstructed view of all of these buildings, the AGR complex. They could have covered all of this whole side, plus everything back here as well, from that water tower. So my question to you, Charlie, is when a site survey was done, would that water tower get looked at and say, hey, maybe that's a good spot to put a sniper on it?
Should be looked at, but those decisions are left to the counter snipers, right? They're the experts in that field. You're going to digress to their decision. Just because you're an agent doesn't mean you're a counter sniper. They're going to know their field of visions, their line of fires. They're the ones who have to defeat any threats. So they're going to take into account how that factors into the entire scenario of setting up. That's why I'm saying, when did they finalize the plan of this is how the stage will be set up, this is where the bleachers will be, this is the way the walkway will be. All of these things factor in. And for them to do, if they go out and do a counter sniper survey, and when they get there on so-called, what we used to say, game day, it's changed. What they've done is virtually not useless, but it's just virtually impossible to do what they do in like an hour.
Yeah.
It's like, oh shoot, I forgot to put gas in the car. Well, I got enough just to get over to the gas station and toss in $50 worth of gas in my car.
Yeah.
No, it changes the entire scenario. It changes the dynamics of it. It changes where they have to be positioned to cover angles and to cover lines of sight. So the question is, was that even considered? I would hope so, but I don't know, because it depends on how that staging and how the bleachers and how all the other things were set up.
Yeah. Look at where this thing is, Charlie. Look at where.
Yeah, but what's the security there, Ron?
What do you mean?
Are there gates around the water tank, or is the access to the ladder that brings you up to the catwalk around the tank, is that secured in some fashion? So that no one
you can walk up to it. Ed, I have a picture I can show. I have an actual picture of that water tower from the parking lot that I just showed you. So no, it's not. It's something that you could get to very easily. And I'm gonna pull it up right now because hold on a second. I just want to show it because I think it's important, because this was something that is definitely a I'm gonna show it to you guys on my phone. This was taken by Mike and Amber from the parking lot, from where they parked that day. So let me go full screen so everybody could see this, and then we'll wrap it up. So they're parked in the parking lot, and you could see that water tower is right there. There's no fencing around it. There's no nothing.
Yeah, I mean, you could access it. Now the question is, Did it have a retractable ladder that went up a story and was locked,
Right.
or was the ladder on the ground?
The ladder is on the ground.
Okay, well then that's a problem. But the question is, was that tower, once the final setup was done, in the counter sniper survey?
Yeah, there's a
right?
small
Or
fence
did it
around it.
change?
There is a small
Well,
fence
all of
around
it,
it.
Ron, all of this will be addressed in the future. You know, like we said, time.
Gotcha.
You know, we have a lot of time right now to figure this out. The point being is, you know, when was the entire venue finalized,
Right.
and was that finalization the right one that the counter snipers included in their survey?
Right.
Pretty basic.
Hopefully we'll hear about it. Jennifer Nobles, who's a good friend of ours, platinum member actually for 39 months. She says, thank you for your service to our great country, USA. Support you and back the blue. DutyRon, Ed, Wallace, and Charlie, all here tonight who serve and have served. I support what's right, not immoral beliefs. Much respect. Thank you, Jen. And sorry that covered you up, Charlie, but I had to put that in. Thank you for the super chat, Gazelle. Thank you. She says the shooter was in a commercial for black. Well, okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's a while ago. That's when he was still in that high school.
Yeah. So there you go.
You know, and if you look at some of the interviews of former classmates of his, the profile that's starting to be put together about him is an individual who was kind of on his own, loner, bullied, picked on, outcast. He was even called by some of the people interviewed who were former classmates. That's very sad. It's very difficult. It's very hard on an individual. It's one of the classic signs of someone who's more likely to so-called snap. You know, when you're put under a lot of duress at a young age that you don't fit in, no matter what you probably try and do, that's very damaging to a young person's psyche, and
You know,
that can drive them to do really terrible things.
You know, it's funny because the former students that were giving these interviews, you know, he was an outcast. You know, making these comments. You know, the shooter was an outcast and so forth, and he was bullied. And I'm like, well, what did you do to stop him from being an outcast and being bullied? Or were you part of that problem? And that's how you know this. And his parents were apparently social workers and therapists.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
I have that in my notes.
Yeah, there's a lot of disconnect here. In the coming days and weeks, hopefully it's all put together. You know, family life, home life. How was it? Was it loving and caring, or was it disjointed and dysfunctional? Additionally, from what we're currently hearing about the students who interacted with him, it doesn't sound like a very pleasant environment to be a part of, and that's sad.
Let's take just a little listen to this. This is just 2 minutes. I want to play it because it has to do with what you guys are talking
Here
about.
in Bethel Park, then they fanned out and tried to talk to neighbors, all in an effort to find out what we all want to know: what motivated this young man to try to kill the president.
He was like a quiet kid. He stayed to himself, didn't really talk to anyone.
Thomas Crooks. This is Thomas Crooks at his graduation from Bethel Park High in 2022. He was an AP student who won a $500 prize for math and science achievement. Later, he worked at a nursing home. Neighbors cannot understand how he went from that kid to the one who allegedly fired multiple shots at former President Trump, wounding him and killing a bystander.
I regularly would see him walking the neighborhood. Just kind of seemed like a quiet, normal kid walking, you know, with his headphones on.
Crooks did join the Clairton Sportsman's Club. Sources tell ABC he would borrow his father's AR-15 rifle to do target shooting there. But investigators are struggling to understand what motivated Crooks. He left few clues on social media. Records show he donated $15 to a pro-Democrat political action committee in January 2021, the same day President Biden was inaugurated. But later that year, he registered to vote as a Republican. Neighbors say they saw pro-Trump signs in his yard.
Absolutely, there was for a while. There hasn't been for the last few months, but there absolutely was mega supporting things for a while.
Sources tell ABC News the morning of Trump's rally, Crooks told his father he was taking the AR-15 to a shooting range. Now, I spoke earlier today with the owner of Allegheny Arms. That's a gun store here in Bethel Park, not far from the Crooks home. He told me they did not sell a weapon to Crooks or his family, but he declined to say whether they sold Crooks any ammunition. Reporting.
So there you have it. Let's get ready to wrap this up. I wanted to show quick, in 2004, I was at the Republican National Convention. I want to show, this is my little ID from the Republican National Convention. I got this from the Secret Service, actually, Charlie. I kept it. I don't know why.
Yeah, you get a lot more hair in that picture.
I got it. No, I don't. I really don't. I just have a little bit of hair here. I actually have more hair now in the picture current than this one, Charlie.
Yeah,
Just
isn't it
all
great?
I had was the mustache. I don't even have the goatee because I couldn't have it.
Yeah, when you age, right, hair just grows in the weird places, not the places you want.
No, I just doxed myself all over the internet. But anyways, this is my Republican National Convention. I spent it in the subway system below Madison Square Garden. We had Homeland Security, Secret Service, Department of State, NYPD, transit cops, MTA, every agency was down there working hand in hand with the Secret Service, and I'm sure crime scene was down there too, working with on overtime, making the city safe, and to stop somebody from getting into a subway system and blowing up underneath Madison Square Garden, because it goes right underneath the garden. So, but that was my 12 days assigned to the subway system. Thank you, Secret Service, and thank you, 2004 RNC. It was
you get some good posts. I can remember some of the ones in my early days. I mean, one of them I was stuck in Carthage, Tennessee, in the pouring rain for 8 hours outside, wet, cold, damp. It's like, wow, how glamorous.
all in the name of protecting our politicians.
Yeah. Yay, democracy.
Yeah. I want to thank everybody for being in the live chat. I want to thank the replay viewers, the moderators, the super chatters. You guys made this really a great live stream because you guys asked some of the great questions. If you want to continue the conversation, leave us questions and comments down below in the comment section. Again, I want to thank everybody for being here, especially my good friend Charlie. He hung out here for over an hour and 30 minutes. Holy shit. Hour and 30 minutes. I want to remind you folks that the victim here who was killed by this crazed gunman, Corey Campatori, 50 years old, hero fighter. His funeral will be tomorrow, 2 p.m. at Freeport Community Park in Freeport, Pennsylvania. 2 to 4 p.m. at Laurel Hall, and 6 to 8 p.m. It's open to the public. If you're in that area, go pay respects to his wife and his daughter, who horrifically witnessed their father, her husband, shot in the head. And there was an ER doctor who was on many news outlets, very emotional how he rendered aid and gave CPR to Corey. May he continue to rest in peace. He just came to a rally to support his presidential candidate. It's just a sad day in American history, and we'll never forget it. July 13th, 2024. And the other two people who were wounded, very severely wounded in the hospital and probably recovering, we send them strength, prayers, and positive vibes. Ed, I know you always got something to say at the end of these things, and there's a lot to say, but we'll give you the final word, Ed.
All right, folks, thanks for being here tonight's show. I know you can get your true crime fix anywhere on the YouTube that you would like, but we appreciate you. Thanks for spreading the word about us. We're at 335,000 subscribers and climbing, and that's due to you. As always, folks, keep our nation in your prayers, keep each other in your prayers. Let's have some civility here, all right? Let's stay safe, let's stay prepared, and watch your six.
Amen to that, brother. Charlie, any final words for the ladies and gentlemen that are watching on your birthday night as a retired Secret Service agent and a good friend?
Yeah, look, hey folks, we still live in the greatest country on the face of the planet in the history of mankind. Don't forget that. We're all Americans. Okay, let's do this right and do it the civil way, polite and peaceful. That's all I ask. No more violence. It doesn't do anything, and it doesn't solve anything, and it doesn't get your agenda accomplished.
Yeah. Amen, brother. Said well.
Amen.
Thank you guys both. And again, thank you to the replay viewers, the moderators, and everyone who is here in the chat. If you're not yet subscribed, consider subscribing. And people are asking about your social medias. Charlie, I know you're on LinkedIn. Is there anywhere else? Any of the ladies? and
That's
gentlemen?
it. I'm on LinkedIn only, and it's unwillingly.
Oh, boy.
When I first popped up on LinkedIn a couple of years back when I retired, people like, where have you been? I'm like, did you look at where I was? You'll know why. So now you know.
Thank you, Charlie. We love you. Happy
All right.
birthday,
Good night,
brother.
gentlemen.
Happy
Thank
birthday.
You.
All right.
Yeah, thank you. And good night to the audience. Thank you for putting up and bearing with the boring.
Stand by
All
for
right.
a message from the cop team.
All
Take
right.
care, guys. Thanks.